The Trade and Investment Authorities want the Corporate Affairs Commission to ensure the amended Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020 does not hinder the growth of SMEs in the country. Lara Folayan reports.
The president only recently gave assent to the amended Companies and Allied Matters Bill. The Corporate Affairs Commission is now to unveil new regulations for business registration. Though pleased by the development, the Trade and Investment Authorities do not want it to put any strain on government's ease of doing business efforts. It wants the CAC to ensure the public has it most easy with business registration now that there are new legislations in place.
We're very happy that it has finally been signed. It's something that has been long awaited, and it is something that will also improve our standing on the World Bank Index of the ease of doing business, as government is trying to help SMEs to flourish. And as such, government is trying to see to it that anything that will make it difficult for them, government is trying to remove those impediments.
The Corporate Affairs Commission assures that the new document will be of benefit to the Nigerian business community. It says it is working with the legislature to ensure that the laws are quickly gazetted. The CAC is also coming up with regulations on articles, which it expects to bring about a better governance structure for companies.
There are so many changes, and most of these changes will come by way of regulations that will define how certain transactions can be done, who should do what, how these things can be done, particularly regulations on model articles of association. What we had in the former law wasn't extensive enough. Companies had been complaining because the provisions were not all-encompassing.
I look forward to the regulations that you want to put together. Once they're ready, we'll go through them again together, as you very well know, and we'll make sure that they are such that will continue to help with the ease of doing business and will not put too much hardship on the practitioners.
The President's assent to the Company and Allied Matters Bill 2020 repeals and replaces the previous one and also introduces corporate legal innovations that makes it easier to do business in the country. Lara Folayan, TVC News, Abuja.
Joining me now to discuss the implementation of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020 and how this will, of course, help translate to improved ease of doing business in the country is Dr. Jumoke Oduwole. She's a special advisor to the President on the ease of doing business. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Oduwole.
You're welcome.
First, I'd like us to start this way. Take us through the contents of this new act. A lot has been said about this document, but take us through a little bit of the changes that are in this new document.
Okay, thank you for the interest in the CAMA. It's been very well received by the private sector. I think some of the most innovative changes that the private sector has been particularly excited about has to do with the structure of formation of a company. So now you can have a single shareholder, single member company. You can also have a limited liability partnership, a limited partnership. These are new configurations of companies that some other climates in the world have them, and the Nigerian business climate, our regulatory climate, now provides for this. So it also reduces the regulatory burden on small and medium-sized companies in particular. We've brought in other innovations such as electronic filing, electronic transfer of shares, which speaks to our debt derivative market. We have some netting provisions in the CAMA 2020. So the Securities and Exchange Commission and the capital markets operators had pushed for this, and we're really glad that that's been included in the Act. Other things like virtual meetings, not requiring an auditor, not requiring a company secretary if you're a smaller company, reduce the regulatory burden and the cost of doing business for SMEs. So these are some of the things that have made it easier to do business, cheaper to do business, faster to do business. Promoters can also sign a statement of compliance instead of having to have a declaration of compliance signed by a legal practitioner or attested to by a notary public.
Now, taking cues from the highlights of other amendments, Section 223, which focuses on registration of charges, subsection 12 stipulates the amount to be paid to Corporate Affairs Commission for the filing of charges. It places the fee at 0.35% of the value of the charge. This is expected to lead to considerable reduction in the cost of filing charges compared to the cost under the previous act. Now, how much of an impact do you think this will have on the market?
In terms of cost, we're expecting about a 65% reduction in the cost of the entire regime of registering of charges. And the reason why this is important is that we need charges properly registered with the Commission. It speaks to accessing credit so that within the whole financial system, when the charges and they're properly registered, creditors know what is available, banks also know what is available, so it widens the capital net. We know that access to capital is something that's very important for any business climate, and particularly in Nigerian context. This is something that private sector have spoken about repeatedly, particularly small and medium-sized enterprises.
Now, I was also reading through, and I'm seeing that this would also in one way help to promote financial stability, and I'm very interested in that part that would help the influx of foreign investors into the country, particularly at this time where we are slightly drifting into recession. How do you see this helping Nigerian economy stabilize in any form?
So I spoke earlier about the introduction of electronic transfer of shares. So with the electronic transfer of shares, we have a lot more liquidity in the market, access to capital through equity and debt markets. We have a derivatives debt market that has been trying to come on stream. The Securities and Exchange Commission is poised to issue their regulations, but they needed the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020 to have netting provisions available. This has now been done, and the capital markets operators are ready. They already have a special purpose vehicle that they've incorporated for these purposes. So we have a vibrant debt derivative market, in addition to our equities market, our vibrant stock exchange, and then you have the financial institutions. This all speaks to deepening the breadth and the capital options available in the Nigerian market for domestic players and, of course, for foreign investors.
I can't go and break again. The scope of interventions to support ease of doing business remains vast, but more needs to be done based on current successes and some challenges. Now, what new perspectives are expected in the half-year 2 forecast?
So if I stay on the legislative end, CAMA took quite a while to come on stream, but we're really delighted it's happening now. We're not resting on our oars at all. We have an omnibus bill on business facilitation that's coming on board with the section of business law of Nigerian Bar Association and with a lot of other stakeholders like the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. We've been working on it for quite a while. So we're going to intensify efforts there, of course, with the Ministry of Justice in the forefront of that intervention. Also, we've had a number of programs that we've been running at both the federal and subnational level with state governments through the National Economic Council. We have a cost of compliance survey that's coming on board soon so that private sector can speak to that and we take action. We also have a national, subnational homegrown survey just speaking to what the environment is across the country. What this does is it gives the current information from private sector to the public sector, and then it allows the executive, both at the federal and the subnational level, to take the particular actions on where the pain points are with SMEs. In addition, on the judiciary side, with state judiciary in particular, we've been working on small claims courts. These are courts that speak to liquidated damages of 10 million or below, depending on the state. So apart from Lagos and Kano, which had done this, we now have Edo State launched theirs, and most recently Ogun State launched theirs. So there are a number of other state governments that want to institute their small claims courts. So that's federal. I've touched on judiciary. We'll continue with the National Assembly with the business facilitation legislation I talked about. So these are just some of the things that are coming on board. The regulatory program the regulatory reform program of the federal government, working with all the regulators and really consolidating where the reforms are pinching most on the private sector. That's one of the most priority, and of course the implementation of Executive Order 1 on transparency and efficiency of public service delivery. So in a nutshell, those are some of the things we're working on right now.
All right, it's interesting to see that we're even doing a little well when we look at the figures released by the World Bank. And now, talking about the MSMEs now in focus, that's where I want to stay, because they really have a lot to contribute to this economy at this time. Job creation and all of that. Now, what more would be done? The issue of data, really capturing MSMEs operating in the country and all of us, so that we know where we stand and what needs to be done to create a more enabling environment for them. Dr. Oduwole, what are we doing in regards to this, talking about ease of doing business?
Well, if you speak to SMEs and capturing of data and their particular challenges in terms of structure, we have a whole agency at the federal level dedicated to that. It's called SMEDAN, and that is exactly the mandate of the SMEDAN. So SMEDAN works very vibrantly across the entire country, working on exactly that. And you can just go on their website, SMEDAN. They have a lot of work done already, and they continue to work. SMEs should know about them if they don't know already. SMEDAN is the, through the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, and you heard the Honorable Minister speaking just in your colleague's earlier report. That is exactly what that agency focuses on. In terms of ease of doing business, it's a continuum. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So it's a journey of continuous improvement. As you mentioned earlier, so our rankings have improved about 39 places in the last 3 years, and we've been twice recognized as top 10 reformer in the last 3 years. Yes, it's always nice when you have the efforts recognized. It's really a testament to the validation that's being given to the Nigerian government at all levels. I spoke to the federal level, the state, and the National Assembly. It's really a testament to what collaboration has been able to deliver for the Nigerian economy. And we continue to work in this particular kind of modality to make sure that we can deliver for the private sector.
Now, private sector partnership. I'll go back to that. Many say that federal government cannot even provide the kind of jobs that we need at the moment if we have to look at the unemployment figures and all of that. Now, where do you see the private sector players coming in so that they can have this environment that they can maybe create businesses and employ people? At the moment, we're thinking of looking inwards. Public-private partnership, how does it come to you, Dr. Oduwole, in helping strengthening our economy in generality now, talking about that?
So it's a priority of the federal government. So SMEs, as we look at them, they contribute about 48% of GDP, and they employ over 85% of labor in Nigeria. So SMEs are critical, and that is why the federal government thought it fit to dedicate an entire presidential council to working on issues, systemic change for SMEs across the country. Now, if you talk about public-private partnership, you're probably speaking to actual PPPs. You have the National Council of Privatization that works at a more sophisticated level. You have huge infrastructure projects to speak to our infrastructure deficit. You have rail projects, you have road projects, you have airport projects going on, you have seaport projects going on. PPPs are a known tool used across the world to deliver infrastructure, because government spend as a percentage of GDP is just about 10% of Nigeria's GDP. So the government spending cannot do it alone. Even if you add all state governments' GDP, it still wouldn't top 20% of Nigeria's GDP. So it's imperative that private sector partner with the government so that we can move faster to deliver for the entire economy.
Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, let's leave it at that today. We hope to have you again, and it's going to be focused on the ease of doing business bit by bit. We'll follow what's being done and what we should expect moving on in 2020. Thank you very much for spending your afternoon with us on Business Nigeria.